Hello and welcome to another edition of Tok Piksa. Road infrastructure remains the most sustainable and cheapest form of transportation in Papua New Guinea. Lack of this infrastructure in many remote areas of the country has resulted in lack of development and effective service delivery. This fact will be highlighted in our story on the opening of the Kagua-Semberigi-Erave Road, but that a little later. First we speak to Augustine Mano, local landowner, businessman, and currently the managing director of the Mineral Resources Development Corporation. He shares with us the challenges faced in building this road and the changes it brings to the lives of the people who live along it.
This road took 14 years because we didn't have sufficient funding. Most of the time it was on a piecemeal basis. Sometimes we had about 5 months of work, sometimes we have 10 months of work, sometimes we took a holiday for like 2 years, and that was one of the main challenges. But also it's in one of the most isolated regions in the country, so in terms of fuel, in terms of delivering all the other logistics, it was difficult because there was no other port facilities. We had to rely on what was available to build this road. And besides that, because it's in one of the toughest regions in the country, almost 50% of the road was to be built through drill and blast, not like other roads where you have bulldozers and you keep doing that. So because of this, it took a lot of our time and effort was through all these challenges. And also we had landowner disputes, problems along the way. All of this made it very, very difficult, and it took a long time for us to deliver that road. But I'm happy that the road has been delivered. When I look at that road, I look at it in terms of the benefits that it will bring to the communities after the oil runs out, even after the LNG. The most important thing is this infrastructure that will connect in terms of services to the communities around that area.
You mentioned landowner disputes during the initial building of the road. Do you still face those challenges?
We need to, both sides have to give, because the road was also important, and also in terms of keeping the company surviving. In order for us to build that road, we had dual role at the same time to balance all of those. But at the end of the day, we are there.
Well, that's good. Challenges. We speak about challenges on the road. You've mentioned it was built at a piecemeal rate mainly because of funding. Were there any other local challenges that you faced? You mentioned landowner disputes.
Yes.
How has all that been sorted now?
I think the bottom line is that people realize that besides employment, besides the benefits of spin-off you get from the business in the construction, is the services, because the Semberigi has been isolated for too long. There's no access to road, and that overrides all the other interests, and that was one of the factors that made us push through that. And also we had good leaders who were determined to have that road, and they provided the leadership on the ground. And one of the unique thing about this road is that they never claimed for compensation. We never paid for compensation. That was, they were willing to sacrifice that for services, and I think in that part of the Highlands region it's quite unique to have that.
This road now links the LNG provinces. As MRDC Managing Director, what is your perspective on it?
Roads bring a lot of benefits. I always look at it like in terms of one of the things that I always look at, like you look at the United States in the 1600s, connecting the railway from the east coast to the west coast, building 10,000 miles of railway really transformed America, that road, that railway. And imagine that road if we were to build a world-class road that connects one end of the country right down to the interior to the other, and if we have that, I believe it can transform the province, the country, because that's what it needs in terms of uniting the country, in terms of services to the rural areas, and in terms of empowering our people to achieve their dreams.
Oh, a very definite avenue for that to happen now with the road. With opening up of villages and previously isolated areas to places or metropolitan areas or more urban areas, obviously there's going to be some challenges with regard to rural-urban drift and all these other problems. Do you see that happening? Is that a challenge for the future?
It is. Everywhere you go, besides the positive, there'll always be negative. But what we need is more awareness. People need to be educated, and we need to understand the consequences. And we'll have to manage that. And it's something for us leaders to, educate our people, and also if there are ways to facilitate in providing opportunities and means to manage these challenges, that's what we can all commit to do.
You mentioned earlier strong political will and yes. Very good support from the current government.
Yes, yes. And we got to be visionary. At the moment, people may not like it, but let history decide whether what we did is wrong or right.
Culturally and at the village level, what will the man on the ground see from the LNG project besides a fancy pipeline?
Well, the LNG revenues that's going to come is only for the landowners, the royalties, the equities that comes in. The construction is gone, and now everything is back to basics. What is important, I see, is building up the infrastructure in all the areas so that not only the landowners but those surrounding areas can benefit. And that are the true legacies of LNG, because we just don't want a pipeline and then you see that everybody comes to Mosby looking for opportunity and spend money. We wanted to have at least small scale economies in all of these areas so that we improve the quality of life in the surrounding areas where the LNG is, and also the surrounding areas. And the only way to do is build more infrastructure there that improves the quality of life around that area, so that life there is also the same in terms of the little aid posts, hospitals, or even schools and all this, so that they don't need to come to Mosby's, entertainment, whatever it is.
The SME sector, a big push by the current government to yes. focus on that. What would be the potential of promoting SMEs in the area around this highway?
I think agriculture, that's a huge potential to it. And like if we improve the Kikori port, at least we have an alternate to the Ley port. Like if something happens along the Highlands, at least we have another route there, so that we keep the production going on in all of these areas where people can decide their own destiny.
It's a big project, it's a big milestone after such a long time.
I think the most important thing is we've got to balance development in the sense that with the world that is the LNG will create, everybody is thinking about investments and bigger things outside of the project area in terms of properties, in terms of dividends. But to me, what is important is that where the project is where we will focus. We've got to build more classrooms, we've got to build more aid posts, we've got to build more roads, good water supply. We've got to balance the development right at that, and that means leadership has to be provided on the ground. And I see a missing link. We're seeing most of the elites from where the resource project is, they're coming to Port Moresby, and then the leadership on the ground is not there. So that is where I think we should focus on, so that that's where the project is.
We've heard from the man who started this project, and now reporter Bernadette Effie with a story on the opening of the Kagua Sembirigi Erave Road.
Simberigi is located between the Southern Highlands province and the Gulf province. These areas within Papua New Guinea are abundantly blessed with the oil and gas resources. Sembirigi village is in the mountains of the Kagwairave district of the Southern Highlands province. People in this district also call themselves the last Papuans, plainly because of the fact that they share a common border with the Gulf of Papua or the Gulf province, the last Papuan province bordering with the Highlands region. They all live in the high mountains and plains because of the frequent ethnic clashes. The people in this part of the province have been living in isolation for over 30 years. Services such as banking and telecommunication, amongst others, do not exist here. A local, a landowner and a businessman named Augustine Mano saw the desperate need for change and made a personal commitment to see to it that it be addressed.
When the people of Gobi signed the MOA with the government, they had only one trade-off, which was no road, no oil. And since then, they haven't. The road had been a big struggle, so it was not built, even though the oil was flowing. So that time, coming right out of the university and then hanging around, looking for opportunities, and also being in the village, I thought that this was a cost that I had to do that. The oil was flowing and there was no road. So that drove me to make sure that we get our road. And over the last 13 years, it's been a struggle, but now we're getting our road.
He described this road as a light at the end of the tunnel for his people. Mr. Mano is currently the Managing Director of the Mineral Resources Development Corporation, or MRDC. Prior to this appointment, he had established the CIFPAC Construction Company, the contractor responsible for the construction of this road.
CIFPAC grew when the road started. It was Lerona companies for the project area where the Gobi oil fields are located, and also where the road is being built. So they formed that company. One of the advantages of having that company is that it was also a Lerona company, so they were able to force their way in going through that rugged terrain, and the Lenonas didn't demand any compensation to go through that road. They wanted the road to go at all cost, and despite there was like 6 or 7 times stopped because of insufficient funding, the logistic difficulties, because it was a Lenona company, and also the cost was getting the road to Sembergi. They had to struggle between those two different interests, whether to make money or build a road. And eventually, it was difficult, but we were able to keep the Lenona's interest at bay because of the entity itself. Initially, the government appointed Buckley Brothers to do that road, but because of insufficient funding by the government of Semaker at the time, the road never went. So it was Chevron who started off with the tax credit of about 10 million, and then it went on. And then after a while, there was no government funding, they stopped. And then the Lenonas came in again and shut oil fields. And that was when things changed. So the government contributed some of the MOA funds, started. And then when it stopped, tax credit came in through oil sets. So they were able to put another almost 60 million in there. and then after that the government came in. So in total, almost more than 100 million over the last 13 years was used for this road. And it was 51 kilometers of road. Now, if you compare it, the Kina spent against kilometer, it's an average of almost 2.5 million per kilometer. And you compare that to some of the roads we are building in Port Moresby, where it can go as far as more than 20 or 30 million per kilometer. And given the logistics difficulties in achieving that, I'm really proud of what we've built at that kind of money. It's very interesting because they had to be walking to the project. There were a couple of strikes. Leaders of the projects came in and demanded the government to give the road. And I think the government, during the leadership of Semoy, during the time, signed a trust deed with the landowners, and that started the process of building that road.
A camp was built in the middle of the Moro petroleum licensed area in the village to house the workers who work 10 hours per day. It contains rooms, ablution blocks, and a mess. It's just an hour's drive from the village. This is also the only place where telecommunication services exist.
Family one time halo tok na halo ko sem visit more family number dos lagana bla ter ha samada bam bla kisin par da sono ko lugi more family na kamda time net to para.
Many of the workers are locals trained by CIVPAC. They said this road is a blessing in disguise for the people and they must treasure it. They said they were also proud to be part of the milestone achieved. Last week, a high-powered political delegation led by Prime Minister Peter O'Neill was invited to officially declare the road open for the people to use. It was a takeover of the Kagwa-Sambirigi-Yarave road to the national government. The Sambirigi Road is now connected to the nation's capital, Port Moresby, through the Kikori Highway, the Malalawa-Kaintiba Highway, and Hiritano Highway. The delegation promised people that they will continue this road project and also link all the villages in the Southern Highlands province. There was an indication by the national and local leaders that landowner issues and compensation were also the hindrance to development in the province. Mr. Mano advised his people that the solution lied in their hands. He said in order to improve living conditions, especially for mothers and children, a collective effort needed to be made to address the law and order problem. Despite being situated in the heart of the Gobe, Moro, Kutubu and Mora petroleum licensed areas, the people have a lot of catching up to do in terms of having access to the basic services. They are also participants in the multi-billion Kina LNG project. The Sambirigi Road is their source of access to these services. The people say this is just the beginning for better days to come.
It's so isolated for too long, and now with the road coming in, I think they can have access to it. Very vital service, and also in terms of other services and that they may need, like if you go there, you'll see that there's not so much schools there. Everything is run down, just like everywhere in the country. But that road will have a lot of impact to their lives here. And we're talking about a population of almost like 15 to 20,000 that lives around that area. Well, after 13 years, you feel that it's a job done. People have their road, and the final legacy for the Gobi MAA has been fulfilled, and the state has finally delivered their commitment. And even if we don't, that the Gobi fields are running down, even if we don't have the revenues from the oil field, at least we have a road, and that is the legacy of the Gobi oil project, and I'm happy with that.
A new road, with it, a new way of life. That's been Tok Piksa for this week. See you next time.